In 1893, America celebrated its bright future with the Chicago World's Fair, a spectacular white city of technological progress and brilliant light. But just blocks away from this celebration of light, a shadow was growing, a 3-story block-long building of dark, foreboding brick. The locals called it the Castle. Its architect was a charming, blue-eyed doctor, but history would come to know it as the Murder Castle. The story of H. Holmes and his Hotel of Horrors has become America's foundational campfire tale, a real-life boogeyman. A hotel built with trapdoors, soundproof rooms, gas jets, and a chute to a basement filled with acid vats and a crematorium. But how much of this legend is true? Was this truly a high-tech factory of death, or the paranoid fabrication of a sensationalist press? In this investigation, we will deconstruct the man who called himself a doctor, the myth of the castle he built, and the very real horror he left in his wake. To understand the castle, we must first understand its architect. He was not H. Holmes. He was born Herman Webster Mudgett in 1861. Even as a child, he showed a dark fascination with medicine and death. While studying at the University of Michigan, he began his first true enterprise: insurance fraud. He would steal corpses, disfigure them, plant them as accident victims, and then he and his accomplices would cash in on fraudulent life insurance policies. This was his true talent. Not murder, but the art of the con. He was charming, intelligent, and utterly without conscience. Fleeing his scams, he arrived in Chicago, changing his name to Henry Howard Holmes. He found work at a pharmacy owned by a Mrs. Elizabeth Holton. Soon after, Mrs. Holton's husband died of natural causes. Holmes then convinced the grieving widow to sell him the pharmacy. Once the papers were signed, Mrs. Holton vanished forever. Now in possession of a successful business, Holmes bought the empty lot across the street. His grand project was about to begin. The construction of the castle was a masterpiece of deception. He constantly hired and fired different construction crews. He did this so that no single person other than himself understood the building's true labyrinthine layout. He also swindled his suppliers. He would order furniture, steel, and bathtubs on credit, then sell them for cash before the bills came due, building his maze deeper and deeper in fraud. The building that rose from the mud was a 3-story monstrosity. The ground floor held his new pharmacy and other legitimate shops. But the upper floors, they were his private hotel. Let us take a tour of the legend. According to the sensational reports, the upper floors contained over 100 rooms, many of them windowless. The layout was a disorienting labyrinth, designed to confuse and trap. Stairways led to nowhere. Doors opened onto solid brick walls. Some rooms were lined with asbestos, allegedly to muffle sounds. Others were fitted with pipes that led to a gas valve hidden in Holmes's own office. He could allegedly lock a guest in, return to his office, and turn the valve, listening through a hidden pipe as they asphyxiated. The most infamous feature was a large, soundproof bank vault built near his office. But the horror didn't end with death. The legend insists the castle was built for disposal. A secret greased chute allegedly ran from the upper floors directly to the basement, a place of even greater horrors. While the upper floors were a labyrinth, the basement was a factory. When police finally unearthed the basement, they were horrified. This part of the legend was largely true. They found a custom-built dissection table, stained and gruesome. It was later sensationalized as a stretching rack. They found a massive walk-in furnace, an industrial crematorium, far larger than any home would need. They found vats of corrosive acid and a pit of quicklime, tools designed to make a human body disappear completely. And they found the final grotesque product of this factory, boxes of disarticulated human bones. Holmes, the former medical student, was stripping the flesh from his victims, cleaning their bones, and selling the perfect skeletons to medical schools, the same scam he started his career with. As Holmes was perfecting his macabre factory, the world arrived at his doorstep. The 1893 World's Columbian Exposition, 27 million people flooded Chicago, a sea of opportunity, and for Holmes, a sea of prey. He advertised his new building as the World's Fair Hotel, a perfect modern accommodation for visitors. His primary targets were young, single women, aspiring actresses' secretaries, and tourists who had come to the big city alone, seeking a new life. He would hire them as his personal secretary, charm them as a lover, or rent them a room. Many of these women were never seen again. Victims like Emmeline Seagrand, charmed and hired by Holmes, who disappeared just before Christmas, along with the $800 she had saved. Or the sisters, Minnie and Nanny Williams, wealthy heiresses whom Holmes charmed, conned out of their fortune, and then they, too, vanished inside the castle. This horrifying legend of the murder castle is what made Holmes infamous. But ironically, it's not what brought him down. The World's Fair ended, the crowds left, and Holmes was deep in debt. He abandoned his castle and returned to his first love, insurance fraud. He convinced his longtime associate, Benjamin Pitezel, to fake his own death for a $10,000 insurance policy, which they would split. But Holmes, ever the opportunist, decided to double-cross him. Instead of faking Pitezel's death, Holmes murdered him with chloroform, staged it as an accident, and collected the full $10,000 for himself. This act began the real horror. Holmes now had to deal with Pitezel's wife and 3 young children, who were waiting for their father to return. Holmes convinced the desperate Mrs. Pitezel to let him take custody of the children, claiming he would reunite them with their father, who he said was in hiding. What followed was a nightmarish journey across the northern United States and into Canada, as Holmes dragged the children from city to city. All the while, he was also escorting their mother, Mrs. Pitezel, on a parallel path, constantly lying and making excuses. The man leading the hunt was Detective Frank Geyer from Philadelphia, who meticulously tracked Holmes's every move, following the trail of the missing children. Geyer's investigation uncovered the horrifying truth. In a rented house in Toronto, he found the bodies of Alice and Nellie, stuffed into a trunk in the cellar. Weeks later, in Indianapolis, he found the remains of young Howard, bone fragments and teeth found in a chimney of a cottage Holmes had rented. The cold-blooded murder of the Pitezel children was the crime that finally convicted Holmes. It was tangible, provable, and monstrous. It was only after his capture for these murders that police and the press turned their attention back to the mysterious, abandoned castle in Chicago. Police did indeed find the confusing architecture, the soundproofed rooms, the body chute, and the horrifying basement. The core of the legend was true. But many of the wildest claims, the 100 rooms of horror, the remote-controlled gas jets, were sensational. Exaggerations by a yellow press, eager to create a superhuman villain. The true victim count from the castle is unknown. Holmes confessed to 27 murders, though some believe that number was also a lie to secure his dark legend. The anomaly of H.H. Holmes is this: the myth of the castle is more famous, but the reality of his crimes, the cold-blooded, personal betrayal of the Pitezel family, was far more monstrous. In 1896, Richard H. Holmes was executed. His neck didn't snap. He was slowly strangled by the rope for over 15 minutes. The murder castle, his greatest and most terrible creation, mysteriously burned to the ground a few months later, as if the city itself wanted to erase the scar. But the legend never burned. It remains a cornerstone of American horror, a testament to the charming face and the cold architectural heart of a monster.